It's fine. Okay.
Yeah,
I dressed for the occasion.
I'm so glad that you did. I should be. I gotta get better about wearing my merch when I'm
I guess I
uh
that there's not
talking.
really a way I feel like to get my face and the shirt on camera, but
Yeah, that's right.
nonetheless,
Um,
I'm trying to
yeah,
find my.
it's um, yeah, I have to order um more shirts for myself because I just created the one. I don't know if you've seen it, but I created the one baseball tee for myself that I
Mhm.
ordered, and I have a couple others for my daughter and my niece that are on the way, that are
Mhm.
geared for them. Um, so I'm like, oh, I gotta wear the same shirt every time, which is fine, but it's like it gets kind of grungy. Uh, but it's definitely like my most favorite shirt that I have. For one of them.
I got this one. I don't know if it's still up and running, but it was an Etsy store called Aging Emo.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, and then I have one that just says sad. It's like kind of looks like a baseball tee and it just says sad songs.
Oh,
And
nice.
that one, I think that one's from the Stay Home Club.
Okay.
So
Yeah, HEMA, there's their Facebook group about that. But
oh yeah.
it's not very active and there's not many people in it. That's because I pretty much looked through all of like the grown up emo kid. I was like, are there any other groups out there like this that I'm trying to do? And and there are a couple, but um none that are like they're not committed.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
and
used to be in like a pretty active like group of fans for Brand New.
oh really?
Um
Cool.
and but then, a few years ago when all that stuff was getting stirred up about Jesse, that
Oh, yeah.
became a little bit more of a toxic community. So I left that, and I
Yeah,
don't think
I could see that.
I'm part of any other kind of Facebook groups anymore.
Yeah, the pop punk kids group is okay. Sometimes I have to step in and play a little bit of dad
Mm.
and go into dad and teacher mode. Um, it's sort of like, all right, well, I am a dad, so that makes sense why. Like, come on, guys, let's we can talk about it. We don't need to call each other POS or anything. Like,
Yeah. Mm.
be civil, but also being like, hey, this is like a terrible argument. Like this you got to do better than this one. Um, but there's a Blink 182 group that I'm in, and I don't really know why I'm in it because it's like half, you know, I gotta say the majority of the time it's like people complaining about the fact that Tom DeLonge is no longer in the band, uh,
Hmm.
or like that if he comes back, they're like magically gonna be prolific again. Uh,
Yeah.
like, guys, I'm not disappointed by Blink 182's last album. Why? Because I have no expectations in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need to prove anything to me. They are a dad band. All my
They are
favorite
now. Yeah.
bands. Uh, it's like, Jimmy Eat World's a dad band. Third Eye Blind, Radiohead. They're all my most favorite groups. They're dad bands. They're not only am I a dad and I play with my kids, but they are dads and they are in their mid to late 40s and their kids are going off to college now. So it's like I don't, I don't know what you are expecting. Uh, so I think you just kind of want to be angry. It's like they haven't had a decent hit since 2004. Well, that was when Tom fucking left. So that was, so almost 17 years ago. So
Yeah. I mean,
maybe,
people.
right. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. Oh, just well, like they just don't expect. They expect the sound to never change and the people to never
Yeah,
evolve or
right,
anything.
right. I'm like, I don't know what, I've sort of said it's like name a band
Hmm.
that has had a smash hit. I mean, a
Hmm.
smash like wow hit past the 20-year mark as a band,
Yeah. Hmm.
especially when it's changed members. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, there are very few. I think the Goo Goo Dolls managed to do that.
Hmm.
Their song um, "Better Days" was pretty big. Uh,
Hmm.
They released it in 2006, but not many people know the Goo Goo Dolls were around for that long. Um, and Green Day, but but people would disagree with me on Green Day. I think they're
Mhm.
last, not the past one because I haven't really listened to it, but Revolution Radio had this song called "Still Breathing" on it. That was like a pretty solid track, and I liked it as much as anything they've ever put out.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but
Green Day, they make radio hits. I mean,
they
they,
do.
they still get airplay.
Right. But but yeah, but it's like there are, if you can find one, it'll be very few that
Hmm.
are, creating that, and just as many people who are complaining about, you know, Blink 182 not having a smash hit, you
Hmm.
know, in in
But
16 years, will also complain about Green Day not having a smash hit since Dookie. And like,
yeah, right.
yeah, and I don't know, it's kind of weird for me because I actually like Green Day more post American Idiot. Uh, Everything American Idiot and after
Hmm.
that more than before. Like I like the stuff before, but
Hmm.
I think the stuff after it, I know, has a bit more of like an emo tinge to it. I feel like
Hmm.
so maybe that's why I just went up connecting with it more.
I
Um,
haven't listened to too much of it after American Idiot.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but maybe I'll check it out.
yeah, I would like an American Idiot was like sort of it's an anomaly in and of itself. It's
Hmm.
because it's such a long and sort of like thorough and intertwined. Like there's so many levels to it.
Well, and
That
it was the rock opera, right?
yeah, and it like it took me. I think I appreciate it even more now than I
Hmm.
did when it was first coming out.
Hmm.
Um, and but I like really yeah, the whatever the album was that came after that, 21st Century Breakdown,
Hmm.
good, and then they had this slew of albums that was called Uno Dos Tres, which was like a
Hmm.
ridiculous amount of songs that I don't know how anyone could listen to at the one time. I don't know if it was like a B-side or what. I didn't really do
Yeah.
research
Hmm.
to know why they were like, hey, we'll do this. Um, but there's a song called "Oh Love" that was on their greatest hits. That was like a really good, um, sort of two like 2010 era like
Hmm.
rock emo ballad.
Yeah.
Oh, love, da, 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 da. And
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so I find myself connecting with Green Day actually more after uh
Hmm.
not after American, but American Idiot
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
after that. Um More, and so I don't know. I'm kind of in a so I don't interact, and my point is with the Facebook groups. It's like I've been
Hmm.
picky about who I interact with, and how. Um, there is a group called non-denominational emo. That's much smaller than Pop Punk Kids. It's only about 5,000 members, but it's all right. I participate in
Hmm.
that sometimes. But really, the Pop Punk Kids group has been I think probably my main group, or certainly top three, maybe
Hmm.
five groups, and since probably November when I joined it, and so it's been an enjoyable time for the most part, and I've made a lot of friends through that group.
Very
Um,
cool.
yeah, and then there were some people that I saw in that group, like you and my
Hmm.
friend Ryan Dennett or
Hmm.
Sutton. That I kind of can I have not spoken to him um,
Hmm.
since like our first year at Missouri State. Like I have not seen him.
Uh-huh.
Nor is his name on the Denton or Dunton. Dutton.
Okay.
Dutton. I don't know how to. I've never needed to ask him how you pronounce your last name. Uh, his name is Senor on Facebook, but I'm pretty sure it's actually Brian.
Mm.
And we were in a intro to society class,
Hmm.
our first semester at Missouri State, and that's how we became friends. And then like we had really similar political views, and it was a really fun guy to talk to. Um, and for the most part, we've like not. really kept in touch otherwise,
Mhm.
since then.
Yeah.
Except I see his Facebook posts and they're always funny and I appreciate them. Um, but then we've like talked more ever since I joined this group. So like, wow, we've been friends for like 15 years, but I haven't
Finally connecting. Yeah.
yeah, finally talking again.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so what's been going on? Oh, sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, well, I was just gonna ask, like, what's the project that is going on with emo music and what you're
Yeah,
working on?
I used to be emo.com. It's a grown up for it's a sorry, it's a grown up. It's a website for grown up emo kids. And
Nice. Okay.
it was for a while. I've had it like registered as a domain for a couple of years, or probably about a
Hmm.
year or so. Um, but it was sort of a just for fun site, and I kind of had a shirts link on there, but it was just kind of like, okay, it's there.
Hmm.
Um, and in more recent months and weeks, I decided like I think I'm gonna actually sort of step this up
Hmm.
and see if I can't make it if there's like interest in this. 'Cause
Yeah.
I sort of made the shirt. I first said I was gonna make the shirt as a joke. It was like someday I'm gonna make a t-shirt that says I used to be emo and now I'm an adult. How
Hmm.
sad. And I got a lot of likes on my personal Instagram page.
Hmm.
And so I thought maybe I'll actually do it. So I
Hmm.
did it. So I went and I made a shirt and I was like, I actually did it. And then I decided to see I posted just recently and someone was like, can I have one of those?
Hmm.
And as an Uber driver, I would like tell passengers about it from time to time because they get in my van, my minivan, and like I don't play top 40s music. I mean,
Hmm.
I might play a song that's on the top 40s that just I happen to like, but
Hmm.
I won't. And so it's like we're listening to, every person in that group, that pop punk kids group would get in my van and probably be like, fucking awesome. This is awesome.
Hmm.
And some are like just like, okay, whatever, and just kind of listen. But I definitely have had passengers who are like, this is really solid. Like I'm really digging everything you're saying right now, dude. And or like and it's like, or I'll get in and I'm playing like a rarity, like something corporate uh or the Academy is or who I had somebody recently that was
Hmm.
oh, I had the band Lydia playing.
Oh.
And they, I don't know if you know them or not.
Hmm.
Um, and they got in and were like, "Is this Lydia?" I was like, "Yeah, we are." Huh? It's like I'm so glad you're playing them. It's like I love them in Copeland um so it's like been a really
Hmm.
fun moment in time and I was started telling them about the site and or about the idea and they're like my shirt and they're like that sounds like something I would absolutely buy. That's absolutely my kind of thing. And some of them have become my Facebook friends. I drove this guy to Ross and his wife or girlfriend to Motion City Soundtrack
Nice.
concert in Philadelphia. Yeah, I picked them up just pre-COVID and I had Death Cab playing and
Mhm.
then something else. And he was like, "Oh, I fucking love this song." And like the whole ride was so great. And then we actually got to the venue, which is about 20 minutes away from where they were, and he realized he didn't have his wallet or
Oh.
his tickets or something. He was like,
Mhm.
"I'm gonna fuck a fucking concert!" Like, uh, he's like, "I knew I should have put on my will call." So anyway, his significant other got out, and but he went back with me. I was like, "Well, if you want, I'll drive you back just to your
Mhm.
house and we can get it and he'll come back." He's like, "You don't
Yeah.
mind?" I was like, "No, it's fine." And this is a really fun ride. So
Mhm.
so we drove back, still listening, and chit chatting about uh, you
Mhm.
know, our lives and we're all about the same age. And, and we got back to the venue and, we took a picture together and he like
Mhm.
posted it on Instagram. It was like, this was like the funnest night I've ever had. And so in fact, for a little while, I was thinking about starting a ride share, but
Mhm.
I, probably on my own, but it probably will be for a while, but called Emo Ride. Uh, those like, that sort of idea, like imagine an emo night, but
Mhm.
you getting in someone's car and they drive you wherever they need to go, and you listen to your like most favorite you know, pop
Yeah.
punk, indie rock, emo core songs. And
The
so what?
the only time that I've had an experience like somewhat like that was I was me and some friends, we were in St. Louis for my friend's bachelorette party.
Right.
And so I think the Uber driver, he was just not, he was like, oh my God, it's an obnoxious bachelorette party because that's just, there's no other way for those to be.
Right.
Um, and we got in his car and he was playing the used. And I was like, oh, hey. And I was like trying to sing along and like I was like trying to talk to him about music and stuff. And I think he was just like, this bachelorette party girl is trying to talk to me and I'm not having it. And so it did not,
Yeah.
it was
I
an attempt.
yeah, I found that like, and some like, some people have been like have asked to change it, and I never know how to totally answer that question because I'm like, yeah, no. Sometimes I will if people are really polite about it. Most people are cool when they ask if they're like, can we
Yeah.
change it? Like, I'd rather not. Like, okay, that's fine.
Hmm.
Some people are like kind of offended, like it's their store, and I'm like, well, if you went to any other store, uh, there's similar rules or businesses that apply. Like, you can't walk into, you know, Old Navy and be like, can we change the music? Like that? No, there's a soundtrack
Yeah.
that goes and it fits the vibe of the store, and that's what they've chosen to play. But
Yeah.
so I used to be emo. Was sort of like basically it was this. Um, it was the idea is like uh music, merch, and help.
Mm-hmm.
That you know the millennial generation, like emo and emo culture is sort of the millennials baby. I just wrote
Mm-hmm.
a blog about that I'm trying to figure out how to present. Um, and but I it's like, I'm not in my late teens or early 20s any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Where most of us are. It's like we're not
Yeah.
in our 30s,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes late 20s, depending on where you are in the millennial. One is in the millennial generation, and but it's like we have, you know but meanwhile, like I generally know where I stand on
Mm-hmm.
things, where I stand theologically, where I stand religiously, or
Mm-hmm.
politically.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of know what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, mental health issues still exist.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like the problems that in the things that come with adulthood, like challenges of life don't really go away as you come into
Mm-hmm.
the in fact they seem to become increased, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because it's on us now,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're the parents now, and we're and
Mm-hmm.
it's like full-time jobs, but like we have bills to pay, and we're going through
Mm-hmm.
relationships and marriages and divorces,
Yeah.
uh, and I'm a dad, and navigating through that stuff and finances and health stuff. My daughter's mom is a cancer survivor, and
Mm-hmm.
like um so I just feel like there could be sort of a community around that like
Mm-hmm.
emo is, whether you sort of consider yourself an emo kid or not, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that music, even though it lasted for only a fairly short amount of time, is
Mm-hmm.
like essential
Mm-hmm.
to the millennial
Mm-hmm.
generation,
Mm-hmm.
and will be, and now is ingrained
Mm-hmm.
in the lives of us and those coming after us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sort of like
Yeah.
that's and so that's the sort of the idea behind it, was sort of I wanted this to be a place where there was like, um you know there's fun music and possibly a chance for bands that like are like bands that are not as known to start having
Mm-hmm.
some exposure.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do eventually some interviews with like there are a number of emo core and pop punk bands that have come out of New Jersey and Philadelphia. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, the early November, the Wonder
Mhm.
Years, Circus Survive, or any of Anthony Green's
I mean,
projects.
isn't My Chemical Romance from Jersey too?
Thank you.
Hmm.
Oh, my Chem, yes, my Chem is yeah, they're from this suburb of New Jersey called Summit, and
Mhm.
I mean they
Mhm.
claim Jersey City because that's kind of
Yeah.
where they moved to start it, but that's still
And
so yeah. What?
Brand New's from up there, right?
Brand News from Long Island. But
Yeah.
yeah, but even like if you count New York, but just New
Mhm.
Jersey
Yeah.
and East Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Sense of Fail, Saves the
Mhm.
Day,
Mhm.
Thursday,
Mhm.
Gaslight Anthem, uh, the band Midtown,
Yes.
which was on the Spider-Man soundtrack. Yeah, they're from New
Mhm.
Jersey. Um, and Man Overboard is from New
Mhm.
Jersey. Um,
It's almost like grunge was west, northern, northwest, emo's northeast.
well, it's what emo is I mean, it's suburban.
Mhm.
Like that's where indie rock, kind of, or at
Mhm.
least the indie rock part of
Yeah.
emo tends to be suburban, and New Jersey
Mhm.
is largely suburban.
Mhm.
That's what a lot of people don't really realize, um, is it's mostly suburbs,
Mhm.
and there are some cities, and there are some, if you're driving down the uh, the turnpike,
Mhm.
New Jersey Turnpike, you like won't see that much.
Mhm.
But New Jersey is also one of few states that when you drive through, you really miss
Mhm.
uh, you really miss the most of the state. Like
Mhm.
most states, if you drive through Missouri, right,
Mhm.
drive down I-44 or I-70 from St.
Mhm.
Louis down to KC, you get a general sense of this is what most of the state looks like.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, St. Louis down to Springfield is mostly farms, fields, and cows, and occasional pockets of towns, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that's accurate. Like, um, but in New Jersey, that's not the case.
Mhm.
Because it's the turnpike was sort of designed so people could get like from New York through to Pennsylvania sort of quickly,
Mhm.
and very effective
Mhm.
for commerce, but you really have to get off the exits in order to once you get off the exit, you start to see like, wow, this is actually really this
Mhm.
place is really green.
Mhm.
I see why they call it the Garden State,
Mhm.
and it's like New Jersey gets a lot of crap. And it doesn't get as much credit as it deserves,
Mhm.
and it gets ragged on a lot. But yeah, there are a lot of bands that have come out of it. I mean,
Mhm.
Asbury Park is this sort of like infamous music town where Bruce Springsteen, his first album was called Greetings from Asbury Park, uh,
Mhm.
and there used to be this festival there called the Skate and Surf or Surf and Turf. I can't remember what the thing. And then the Bamboozle tour
Okay.
festival happened in this place called the Meadowlands, which is up in North
Mhm.
Jersey. Um, so New Jersey is a very like prominent music state. Bon Jovi
Mhm.
from New Jersey,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
and the Goo Goo Dolls apparently now live in New Jersey. They're from
Oh.
upstate New York. They now
Mhm.
live in New Jersey. Actually, the band Blues Traveler and
Okay.
Spin Doctors are actually from my hometown too, Princeton.
Mhm.
Um, but I've never met any of them, and you know, I've never met Saves the Day either, even though they're from my hometown. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so a lot of those bands are from um, our area or that
Mhm.
area. I'd like to sort of do a series of interviews
Mhm.
with those bands if I can. Um, oh, Starting Line, they're from Philadelphia.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, originally, yeah.
Mhm.
That's another one. And just to sort of talk about like, where are you now
Mhm.
versus like what was life like when Ace
Yeah.
Anderson got started in early November. They got
Mhm.
started like right after they graduated high school.
Mhm.
Um, and it's so I'd be interested to know.
Mhm.
I hung out with him once several years ago and did a day recording session with him,
Oh,
and
cool.
I felt like he and I could have very easily switched stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's only a couple years older than I am, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like he went out of college or high school and got signed, and a couple years later I got out of high school and
Mm-hmm.
college. But like
Mm-hmm.
our writing styles are very similar. The way we sing and the way we write songs, and like I had never really heard his music
Mm-hmm.
before, and then it was sort of after I was listening to it, I was like, wow, these are like the same kind of songs I used to write.
Yeah.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
like wow, and we got along like so well. It was such a fun guy to hang out with, and we
Mm-hmm.
had a great time, 8 hours just hanging out in the studio. And it was kind of like, I don't know where I'm going musically, but I had a great time talking to you. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know if you heard the Ugly Sweater song that I recorded in December.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
No, I'll have to go back and listen to it. I don't think I did.
yeah, let me see if I can find it. It's I didn't put it on Spotify or anything,
Okay.
um, and I guess I should, but it's on my webpage. Um, But I recorded it in the same studio that the Wonder Years recorded their most recent single in.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, the guy I recorded with actually like knows one of their members records in this, like he works in the same studio, so I
Mm-hmm.
met him briefly. Um, so that's sort of what I'd like to do in the future. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for the short, concise sentence,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I used to be emo is sort of about a place or providing a community and resources for grown-up emo kids.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, kind of the idea. And, there's an offer, right? There's a website and people can join the email list, and there's, weekly playlists and,
Mm-hmm.
and things. And then there'll be eventually interviews and, things that go
Mm-hmm.
into emails as well as on the site.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's merch that people can buy through Teespring to support the site, and then there will be some more once everything gets set up, and then there's an exclusive offer, um, where there are some shirts that's like you can only get through this offer, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it, and that sort of is helping to sort of fund the project and sort of make sure that this is validated, and we're
Mm-hmm.
that the pre-order is kind of there,
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that there's interest in it, and to sort of support, what we're doing, and or what we're doing. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a community, but I'm like, well, I'm
Yeah.
one dude, so uh, like getting all this stuff set up by itself. But yeah, that's the idea. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like there's a way that we could, there's a way that we can reach out
Mm-hmm.
to each other and people in a very real way. And I feel like in my life, and I've been talking a bit, but I was telling someone yesterday, like I feel like one of the things I've been called to do in my own life is that I'm a bridge builder,
Mm-hmm.
and that's sort of like been my goal and my
Mm-hmm.
type loosely for a while.
Yeah.
Not something that I gave myself. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
sort of like when I used to work with youth groups and churches, that was sort of like a name that I was given. And I worked with this youth group one time that they made these paper plate awards,
Mm-hmm.
the group, and like different people, and the one I got that meant the most. One I got once I got the Diva Award because I was always singing in high school. Um, I got from this youth group the Building Bridges Award, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that really meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of like how we went to this conference, and like I actually knew it better than the then youth ministers.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been there more and I sort of knew so much about the place and so many persons, and
Mm-hmm.
and like I think that's sort of where I exist. I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday who's very non-religious, and sort of put off by church stuff. We actually met at the same youth conference that I got that paper plate award at, in high school. But she was like, you're the only Christian that I talk to,
Mhm.
or the only overt Christian that I talk to. Like obvious, like I know that you like, it's like you won't shy away from it, but you are not forcing it down my throat at the same
Mhm.
time. Or that, and I've had other persons tell me that too, or that like, when it's coming to political things, it's like, well, my goal is to kind of build bridges between people. And so
Mhm.
even though I'm like very, very, very bleeding heart liberal, uh,
Mhm.
to absolutely claim that, I will also can argue really
Mhm.
consistent viewpoints, even though I don't agree with them at all. I was like, you know, uh, because that's my goal is to build bridges, uh,
Mhm.
and and I don't always do that well myself. I have my moments of like, that is just effing dumb, but I'm getting there. But so it's sort of like when you're a crossing guard, uh,
Mhm.
kind of in the middle of the road a lot of the time. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I,
That
but I, but I
good
think
analogy.
that's yeah,
Mhm.
but I think that's something that I can offer, and
Mhm.
I think not only that I can offer, but that I've been called to do
Mhm.
and I don't
Mhm.
think that's everyone's call. It's not a knock on anybody who's like. It's just we have
Mhm.
different talents and like
Mhm.
um, and so I've just felt like I don't know. This could be kind of a bridge that
Mhm.
was like I could take and the thing I like doing as much as I enjoy playing music. What I
Mhm.
enjoy more is talking with people like we're doing right
Mhm.
now about
Yeah.
things we care about.
Mhm.
And so I would much rather do this as a job
Mhm.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like I could, spend 8, 9 hours with different people talking about, the
Mhm.
value of emo. And I feel like it's a thing that it's just become a passion of mine that was like, how do I share this with other people? Uh,
Mhm.
how do we keep that
Mhm.
path going and help people to know that like I think one of the things that people struggle with, and I've struggled this year, is that we're not spending time with each other.
Mhm.
And I've kind of missed a community of people because of my own life situations.
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes when we get into our jobs and we get into our careers and we can't and our
Mhm.
family, like we can't go to shows and we can't you know
Mhm.
connect in that way, even pre-COVID. Like there's kind of this sense of like, do I have friends? Am I
Mhm.
like, do I still matter? Uh,
Mhm.
and it's like, yeah, you still matter. That music still matters.
Mhm.
Still, it
Yeah.
has mattered. It will matter. And like, I think that's at emo's core. That was
Mhm.
the point. Like, this music matters. Uh,
Mhm.
this moment matters.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, and so that's anyway. That the idea of the I used to be emo
Mhm.
project. I used to be emo.com is
Nice.
having fun with emo. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I've been talking a lot, so I want to hear your thoughts and get your feedback and
Yeah, I very much I like all of that. One thing you might look at, have you heard of she shreds? It's kind of a tongue twister.
no, I don't think so. I'm gonna look that up right now.
So uh it's um it's a female guitar driven, primarily rock or alternative rock. Like it started out as just like it was a magazine and a website,
Yeah,
um in with the idea of like getting young girls and women better representation,
yeah,
instead of just like the models you see in guitar magazines, actually featuring like female musicians and female guitarists and stuff. So they started out like that, and now they've done a really good job of just building up a community of like not just like getting equal representation, but also like what techniques do you want to share, what gear do you want to share. Like it's like a very like kind of
right.
all those aspects of like the technical community, but also the community
Yeah,
building community of
that's
it.
awesome. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow them on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm gonna listen to it more when I'm not talking to you.
Yeah. So like I'm a mediocre at best guitarist, but I really got into them just because like I guess that's one thing is like as much as emo music and alternative rock in blanket statement has like meant to me, there's not a great female representation. Like I didn't see myself in a lot of the people I admired, you know?
Yeah,
Um and like I kind of have this joke about like young Gerard Way, like did I want to be him or be with him? I don't know, like kind of both,
yeah,
but a female version. So it was like this weird thing where and like I am and have always uh felt this way as I'm only attracted to men. And so
yeah,
like I'd be attracted to like the bands I was listening to, but I never had that feeling of like that could be me, you know? It was like um so I'm all about getting greater representation
yeah,
as well. But all that being said, like yes, that's a flaw. Yes, that's something that can always be worked on, but
right,
that doesn't to me that doesn't belittle how much the like you said it really feels like our generation's music
yeah,
because my mom um my mom pretty much was a single mother most of my life and she raised me on like Fleetwood Mac and like David Bowie and like all of these like the classics but and everybody's always like oh your mom raised you on such good music like didn't you love that and it's like but to me it felt like my mom it didn't feel like mine you know it
yeah, right,
wasn't it was like it was just like what was always on at my house
right,
but I did something that felt like unique like I discovered this is my thing you don't like it you know what I mean
right,
and so like yes I appreciate now that I was always surrounded by good music growing up but at the
yeah,
time when I started discovering emo and when I just started discovering like pop punk that to me it felt like something new it felt like something I hadn't heard before it wasn't what is always playing like in the background of my house you know
yeah,
um so it really was kind of that like ownership of like this is something new and fresh and that's happening right
yeah,
now and it's you know
yeah,
um
yeah, yeah,
and and it also you know as a young person who did struggle with like depression and anxiety and not knowing how to express those feelings it felt right and I made that connection with it too you know aside from just the like this is something new and exciting to me like it also was an outlet like I know I've mentioned brand new a couple times they're like I always just tell everybody they're my favorite band
absolutely.
and um and I always express it like brand new helped me understand codependent relationships before I knew what that phrase ever was
Right,
you know because that whenever I got older once again just kind of growing and learning about yourself and learning about mental health issues like when I got older and I learned what codependent relationships were and I realized like that's kind of what's been happening around me my whole life
right,
I was like oh that clicks so much with why I connected with like this song or this feeling you know
yeah,
um so in some ways for me anyway it gave like emo music and that music in general gave me the validation of like someone understanding how I felt that I wasn't getting like in real life
yeah,
you know
yeah, that's accurate. That I mean that's so like this blog. I want to do it to the song 23 playing over it. Uh,
mm-hmm,
that song, but I haven't figured out how to sync it up to where it's like it starts and then it gets softer while I'm talking over it, and then it comes.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Uh, I just posted a little clip of it on my Facebook page yesterday,
mm-hmm.
but I got this little notice that was like copyright issue because of One Tree Hill, not because of Jimmy World, because of One Tree Hill issues, like because it was used in season 10, and
Mm-hmm.
I really love the show One Tree Hill, but it's like F you, like if you could use it if it was sort of like okay, it's not the central theme, and it's like you're not like you're giving credit. It's like you're just using this as part of like the creative
Mm-hmm.
product. And so that's what I'm doing. It's like I'm just using it to sort of, you know,
Mhm.
play. Because for me, Jimmy Eat World was one of those bands, like Brand New was for you.
Mhm.
The other one was Bright Eyes.
Mhm.
Uh, that so I was particularly a sophomore year in college, and when I really started listening to Jimmy Eat World and Bright Eyes, and I really listened to them all. Like I learned about Bright Eyes over that summer 2004, and Jimmy Eat World released Futures in that fall, their Futures album in fall
Mhm.
2004. And I'd known Jimmy Eat World's, three
Mhm.
hits, um, but I hadn't, and one other song, but from Clarity, but I hadn't really listened to anything else,
Mhm.
uh, and or in depth, and I found myself alone in a single dorm room, um, with friends that were had my close friends at that college were it was a very tiny college. There was only seven, but less than 700 students, uh,
Mhm.
and my people who were my I thought were my friends were away that semester studying abroad, and so I was like
Yeah. Mhm.
there, and my closest friend, and I had wound up having a falling out,
Mhm.
and those friends who were studying abroad came back. I found that they were really not the people that I wanted to be around, and they
Mhm.
didn't like him. My friend Andy, who I had wound up having a falling out with, I mean, Andy and I have made up since then, and we were both at
Mhm.
each other's and groomsmen in them, and so
Mhm.
like we're brothers again. But at the time, we had a falling out, and so I wound up just sort of sitting in my dorm room by myself, in the middle of a town that's in the middle of nowhere, and I
Mhm.
had really no access to anything else. I didn't have a car. I didn't
Mhm.
have I couldn't leave. It was 12 hours, 12 hours, depending on how fast you drive, from, you know, my house in New Jersey. And when I was in New Jersey, I didn't feel like I was at home either. Uh,
Mhm.
it was this torn thing. Missouri was like a godsend. And
Mhm.
that's a different story from the time, but it was sort of a part of that, like
Mhm.
fresh air for me. Um, but I was in North Carolina at the time, and um, I found myself there weren't record shops, couldn't walk really anywhere, and I found myself listening to this music service, Rhapsody,
Mhm.
and for $10 a month, I could listen to almost any music that I possibly wanted.
Mhm.
And not only like it's like I could listen to just band after band after band, and it wasn't quite as expansive, if you used it as Spotify is, but it was
Mhm.
very impressive. And it was $10 a month.
Mhm.
Uh, and I found myself, I had a single, I didn't have a roommate. I found myself just sitting in my dorm room listening, to Rhapsody. And it was like,
Mhm.
and it started with like, the just it was like, okay, we're gonna start with Ben Folds, and then we're gonna
Mhm.
all of Ben Folds and Ben Folds Five,
Mhm.
and then it moved over to like, the Wallflowers, and I'm like, oh, Miles Davis, and like I knew about Rhapsody actually before then because I had it my freshman year too, so I knew
Mhm.
about the books and all, but I was by myself, and so
Mhm.
I wound up using Rhapsody, and it was like Mars Volta, and then and then it was like I'm gonna start. They would list contemporaries and influences and followers,
Mhm.
and so I found myself just like clicking
Mhm.
so many bands and then just making these playlists. And like I probably averaged at least four new bands a day,
Mhm.
uh, and and then it suddenly led to it was like Jimmy Eat World, and then and the Ataris, to then
Mhm.
to you know to starting line and Jack's Mannequin, and something corporate, and Saves the Day, and like all these big bands that I heard of but I never really like stopped to listen to,
Mhm.
and some I liked more than others. I actually didn't really appreciate pop punk as much until like the end of the first early 2000s.
Yep.
I was
Mhm.
more of an indie rock
Mhm.
person. So I was more into bands, to Radiohead and Beck and Modest Mouse and the Decemberists,
Mm-hmm.
except for Jimmy Eat World, who was just like boom. And what?
I just like, I think Jimmy Eat World is so underrated. Like I feel like even a couple times you've been like, I mean, even Jimmy Eat World, because like I think like The Middle is a great song for what it is,
Right.
but like that's what people associate with them. And I'm like, The Middle is like their worst song.
Yeah,
Everything else goes up from there, you know?
it's like the middle is it's like I don't mind it, but it's like once you hear everything else, it's like, oh man, that's like at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And I think so. One of those songs, and Bright Eyes was that too. It was like these are
Mm-hmm.
songs that was like you're describing exactly how I'm feeling, but I didn't know how to say it, and I didn't
Yeah.
know anybody else could feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jimmy Eat World has this song off of Bleed American,
Mm-hmm.
um, called Cautioners,
Mm-hmm.
and it's my favorite song on the album. And it the chorus goes, you'll change your mind come Monday and
Mm-hmm.
turn your back on me.
Mm-hmm.
Take your steps away with hesitance. You'll take your steps away from me. And that was exactly what I was feeling like with
Mm-hmm.
people in school where I was.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know who my friends are and who they are. And that was exactly what was happening in New Jersey as well. I had a number it wasn't a lot, but it was like a number of significant relationships in New Jersey and then around the country. Like I wasn't happy at, you know, my school in North Carolina, which is why I eventually wound up in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I tried going to places where I had friends looking at schools and they just wound up crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
The visit was crumbling, the friendship crumbled. Um, and and then Bright Eyes had this song, because I'm Wide Awake It's Morning came out
Mm-hmm.
in 2005. And it's interesting. I'd heard about Bright Eyes that previous summer, but I went to see him on a Wide Awake It's Morning, and he wasn't on Rap City because he wasn't allowing his music to be used there, uh, which made me respect him even more actually at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I wound up going to see him in Raleigh, North Carolina, and so I bought, and he was touring. He released both I'm Wide Awake It's Morning and this album Digital Ash and a Digital Urn the
Mm-hmm.
same, and at the same time, but so I bought those at the concert and I bought the album Lifted, that came before that,
Mm-hmm.
the year, and so it's like I those are my albums, but it's like, but told people, I was like, but I kind of listen to them all together, and I listened to Jimmy World's like Clarity, and Bleed American, and Futures sort of all at the same moment, and it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, everything you're saying right now is
Yeah.
like, describing my life. And Bright Eyes on I'm Wide Awake This Morning has this song called Poison Oak,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I mean, just throughout that entire album, it's just like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? It was like right when it's like, I want him to say this. He said it, Like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
are you reading my mind?
Mm-hmm.
And he has this, but in Poison Oak, he's going, um, there's a line where he's like, the end of paralysis, I was a statuette. Now I'm drunk as hell on a piano bench. And when
Mm-hmm.
I press the keys, it all gets reversed. The sound of loneliness makes me happier.
Mm-hmm.
And at my school, at that tiny school, there
Mm-hmm.
was a chapel in the student center that was open 24 hours, and there was a piano in there. And I had like was very new to songwriting and learning piano, but I would like there were many nights when I was like just I'd go in there often heavily intoxicated.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like play and just play and play and play and play and play, like
Mm-hmm.
get out of this place, wanting to not be at this school, but kind of being stuck there. And it's like at some point it was like I have to just kind of wait this out.
Mm-hmm.
And when the semester ends, I'll figure out what's happening. But so Bright Eyes, yeah, was that like that for me? There was like that same sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
wow,
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking to me in this way that
Hmm.
is,
It's validating.
yeah,
I mean,
like totally validating and totally like that
hmm
every single moment, every line, and he was
hmm
writing about George W. Bush and his issues there, and
hmm
it was just like, wow, you're like speaking my total language right now,
yeah.
man. It's like I don't know if you know, I don't know how you managed to tap in. And I think the interesting thing that also that Bright Eyes did for me as a songwriter was just his songs were like not verse chorus,
hmm
which I like. And Jimmy Eat World is definitely down to a formula. It's like that's
hmm
their songs are pretty much exactly the same, but it works for them. But
hmm
Bright Eyes was like, all right, here's this kind of like Bob Dylan, and it's like this is
hmm
just a song.
yeah.
It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Uh,
There it
you
is.
know,
It's a song. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, oh, you can write songs that way.
hmm
That's a lot. You're allowed to do that.
hmm
Okay, I'm gonna do that. And eventually I learned how to sort of write more like Jimmy Eat World, in that sort of like first chorus, bridge chorus, end sort of
hmm
way. But so yeah, it's very similarly. I think that, and I think that's it. There's sort of this like, we were allowed to connect, like we're allowed to
hmm
address mental health issues.
hmm
Uh, too.
I
Yeah,
think that's a big, using the phrase allowed to, that I think coming from our parents' generation where either you just didn't talk about your problems
right,
or you just became an abuser of substances to deal with your problems. And that just wasn't cut. And then, like, our generation kind of be having to deal with the fallout of whatever all of that is.
yeah,
I think it does kind of give you it as a young person who is trying to figure things out. And like, as far as me, I didn't have any like healthy examples in my life of how to deal with negative emotions or anything. It does feel like, oh, you're allowed to express this stuff, you don't have to just bottle it up.
yeah.
um in that way too. It's and I think part of it too, because we've talked about, you've mentioned Christianity, we've talked about emo music, we haven't talked about Christian emo and the special, and Christian screamo, and like kind
Yeah.
of the special niche that was.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Because
that,
I
but
I just feel like for me, um, because, well, okay, a little bit more of my life backstory is my dad is Jewish and my mom is Christian, and like they were both raised in those practicing households.
yeah,
And so for like, I would say like the first 10 years of my life, both of my parents were like, some people believe this and some people believe that, and that's okay. Like, you need to respect other people's points of view. Like, it was this very kind of like open book
right.
sort of way of view of religion for the first, because of them having two different backgrounds. And then as soon as my parents split up and I was just with my mom, it was like very hardcore Christian.
Really?
um, which, so first of all, like that kind of just didn't jive with the worldview I had been brought up on of like, listen to everybody, hear everybody's story, to all of a sudden like, no, this is the only thing that is the truth. um, but I mean, for a good chunk of my life, like being involved in church was like a really important thing to me. And during that time, and especially during like when my mom made that like hard right turn to like super Christian now,
Yeah,
like listening to Christian like emo and Christian hardcore and Christian screamo, it was like, well, first of all, I can get away with listening to whatever I want to because it's Christian.
right.
But then second, like there is something about like, oh, you can like have religious beliefs and still be angry. Like you don't have to pretend everything's okay all the time just because you're a religion.
Yeah,
Like there was also on both the Jewish and the Christian side of my family, there was kind of this weird thing where it's like religion will take care of it. Don't feel bad,
right.
when really that doesn't make help you work through anything. you
Yeah.
know
Oh, it doesn't. In
uh,
fact, that was one of the issues I was having in my early 20s, because I was involved in churches for a long time, not
mhm,
just raised in them. I mean, my mom worked in a church for 34 years. She was a choir director. So I grew up in our church, but I also spent, half my life doing youth ministry, uh,
Mhm.
either voluntarily or professionally. And that started when I was in ninth grade, which in hindsight was way too young. Uh,
Mhm.
and in
Yeah,
fact,
you're still, you know.
I mean, yeah, that went to the point when I started, when I was
Mhm.
when I was doing that professionally,
Mhm.
uh, and by professionally, I mean I'm getting paid to be
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
Um, I would not allow advisor, like, I was like, I'm not gonna allow a ninth grader to be a middle school advisor.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's not any there is no difference between a ninth grader and an eighth grader. There is
Yeah.
no difference. You will
Mhm.
never convince me that it is. Um, but that was a mistake. I think the youth minister at the time admitted some mistakes. She and
Mhm.
I still keep in touch a lot,
Mhm.
and or pretty regularly. And but she was kind of desperate for help,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't really necessarily change it because um, for me it was like a very affirming moment in my
Mhm.
life. In ninth grade, I was sort of really wrestling that first semester with, like, well, who am I and where do I exist? And both
Mhm.
my older siblings were out of the house,
Mhm.
and my younger sister hadn't joined our family yet. My younger sister's adopted, and
Okay.
but she's 4 years younger than I am.
Mhm.
But so, I was just kind of struggling to sort of figure out what was going on with me and my place. And then I had this opportunity to become a middle school advisor.
Mhm.
Um, and I really, honestly, if we're being honest, I did it because there were people in the eighth grade that I wanted to hang out with more.
Mhm.
Some
Mhm.
friends, particularly a girl who I found attractive. And we wound up never dating, but we became really good friends in high school. I mean, we were it's
Mhm.
where often people kind of thought we were, uh,
Mhm.
but it just never amounted to that. Um, and but anyway, so I started, and I was a middle school advisor all the way through my first 2 years of college, until I finished, until I stopped in North Carolina.
Mhm.
And, um, and yeah, there was a moment when I literally I had to step away.
Mhm.
End of that. Um, when I was 20, and I was like in college. I just didn't know where I belonged
Mhm.
anymore, what it meant to be a Christian, and I could delve more into that, but that's not the point of this talk.
Mhm.
Um, but it was a very strange place, and um, there were many moments when I think that you know for me the issue wasn't Jesus.
Mhm.
Jesus loves you. It was like, I don't, it's like, I get that part. I get that. I don't doubt that. Uh, it's and my issue is, it's like, I know I believe in God.
Mhm.
It was sort of like I believe, and I'm kind of in the category of other. Uh,
Mhm.
placed myself was like, um, I just don't know where I stand in my position in the church, where I
Mhm.
stand, whether I'm a Christian or not. And I mean, there was a time like this summer, I'd never been to Missouri until I got accepted to Missouri State.
Mhm.
I literally had no connection to this state whatsoever, until I went to college there. Um, and I visited after I got accepted, and
Mhm.
actually, my first visit to Missouri was absolutely terrible. It was long story, but it was like not a really great experience.
Mhm.
And on that trip, drive back, I was by myself, but I was 21. I'd rented a car, paid a surcharge to rent a car early, and was driving back. And I would just actually quite literally was like screaming out
Mhm.
loud at God, and like giving the finger to the sky, and just really angry, and so there was a moment where it's just like, I just don't want to talk to you anymore.
Mhm.
But the music that was really speaking to me and that really saved me was that music we were just talking about,
Mhm.
by Jimmy Eat World and Bright Eyes and Radiohead and all these bands
Mhm.
were like really speaking my language,
Mhm.
and really helping me navigate,
Mhm.
through they were helping me. Like I was longing for something, and they were sort of
Mhm.
helping me to believe that there was something else
Mhm.
better that was
Mhm.
coming. And something did come along that was way better. I wound up going to Missouri, and I still was like, well, I'd rather be in Missouri than in New Jersey. And I knew North Carolina was like, we're done. That's done. We're
Mhm.
not happening.
Mhm.
Um, but then as I got into Missouri State, I found myself not really connecting with Christians
Mhm.
at first, but the gospel. I described Futures album like that. It was a gospel to me when the gospels that I'd grown up with weren't making sense. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
and and actually, as I got involved in Christian Campus House, and then this group Ichthus, one of the things that connected me with them, um, because I was not a Christian when or
Mhm.
labeling myself a Christian when I first got involved. I
Mhm.
got because I went on a mission trip over spring break with Campus House, uh,
Mhm.
that I found out about through a friend who I'd met through something else, and we gone to
Mhm.
party together. And she was like, "I'm gonna go find out about this mission trip to Mexico over spring break." I was like,
Mhm.
"I could do that. I could help some people." Like I don't really know where I stand, but I could help some people. So I wound up going on this trip, and um, I discovered on this trip that there were some people that I met that were really into the same kind of music that I was into.
Mhm.
Oh, you like Blink 182
Mhm.
and Angels and Airwaves. Like that the leader of the band, the praise band, had a Angels and Airwaves shirt on. And
Mhm.
when I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I was in I was in a Facebook group at the time called Praise Bands Annoy God. Uh, and and I sort of chuckled. She was like, yeah, we probably do. And in a way, I mean, that's sort of his attitude.
Mhm.
Oh, you like Radiohead too,
Mhm.
huh? And I
Yeah.
had to like sort of, step back because I had not connected
Mhm.
with somebody in that sort of way. Um, and that's what sort of kept me involved in
Mhm.
Campus House. I still wasn't a Christian, but I kind of go back to be like, well, I like these dudes,
Mhm.
these people, and I want to say hi to them, and I like Dave Embry, who leads who's the director,
Mhm.
and I like talking to him. So, and then when I joined Ichthus was like they all love the same kind of
Mhm.
music that I did, and some of them were like in bands just like I was, um and so that really sort of connected me to them. Was like our way of connecting was not at first our faith,
Mhm.
but was our music. uh,
Mhm.
and it was like not like, hey, listen to this super cool worship song. It was like, no, listen, like, have you heard the new brand new album, uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
Manchester Orchestra?
Mhm.
um and that was like really
Mhm.
impactful.
Mhm.
And then I think particularly bands like Manchester Orchestra
Mhm.
that managed to sing about, because eventually I became a Christian again around 2000, 2009. Um, and Manchester Orchestra
Mhm.
really had sort of songs that were, it's like you could tell there's sort of somehow like a faith behind it.
Mhm.
'Cause I think Andy Hall is a pastor's kid, even
Mhm.
though, and so it's sort of like, it's like I'm the only son of a pastor who does the things that I do.
I actually just got in the mail the other day the 10th anniversary record edition of Mean Everything to Nothing.
Oh, really?
That had a,
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
mhm.
And I think it's the first line, like I
Mhm.
am the only, yeah, one who knows. So I guess the
Who
second line.
thinks I'm going crazy is
Yeah, they
the,
sound crazy. It's like son of a pastor who does the things I do. Uh,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
like it was something about it. It was, the Lord showed me dreams of my daughter.
Mhm.
It was crying
Mhm.
inside my stomach, and I felt love. Um, so there's like a very real sense. And then I heard the band For Today, which is like the Christian Screamo band when I was on
Mhm.
this pilgrimage I took. Um, and yeah, that was a really they had this really like interesting song when they're like singing a scripture verse over it. And So yeah, it was like I think it's like, yeah, there's an interesting way
Mhm.
that emo has connected with people. You
Mhm.
know, an overt place, whether it's like Hawk Nelson,
Mhm.
um, you know, playing is like, wow, this is a pop punk song, but there's a Christian vibe, lyrics.
Mhm.
But then there are
Yeah.
also bands like Switchfoot, and
Mhm.
what makes Switchfoot, I think, particularly interesting, and Amber Lynn,
Mhm.
which both were connected to Tour at Love on Our Arms. Um,
Mhm.
that Switchfoot was like unapologetically Christian, but somehow like their lyrics were like
Mhm.
they're very accessible even if you weren't a Christian,
Well, I
right?
think it's once again going back to that validation. It
Yeah,
validated that it's okay to have complicated feelings about religion.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because I think prior to that, it was either like religious music or like rock. Like there was like this like you can be one or the other. And I think that a lot of these bands acknowledge like complicated relationships with any sort of organized religion.
right.
So.
Yeah, yeah. That song "Meant to Live," that
Mm,
maybe my entire album, "Beautiful Letdown," is,
mm,
which I didn't really appreciate until years later, but
mm,
uh, as much. Like I didn't really listen to it in its entirety or really think about it.
mm,
Um, but like that, like we were meant to live for for so much more.
mm,
Uh, we lost ourselves. Like even if you're not a religious person, you can still
mm.
like, yes, there's
Yeah.
something here. Amber Lynn's like, they lied when they said that the good die young.
Mm,
Uh,
mm.
like, but they're not just singing it. They're like, they're like, it's like right in your face, like they lied. It's oh my god.
I
I
mean,
can't,
there's definitely, and like, I think that's part of it. There's like, you can't recapture the feeling of like those shows.
right.
And because I went and saw Taking Back Sunday on their reunion tour. So let's see, I'm 31 now, so I probably was like 28 then, maybe. Um, and I was like, "Ooh, it hurts! Like, stop pushing me!" Like I'm old now, but like when I was young, like you just can't get enough of that energy,
Yeah. What's interesting is I was never like into being pushed, like pushing,
Mhm,
and I never went into mosh pits. Uh,
mhm,
that sounds like that looks like not a lot of fun.
mhm.
So it's like if that's your thing, go for it. You can have at it.
I never intentionally got into mosh pits. I think especially because even now I'm only 5'3", and so when I was younger I was even smaller, and like I think I would just get pushed around because I was
Yeah,
there. But there was inevitably always some sweaty shirtless punk who would help me up,
yeah.
and that
I'm sure it's
watch.
hard. It's like I'm not really gonna be able to enjoy the music knowing that someone's gonna be like shoving me.
Right, yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's like this it's kind of all on the floor,
Mhm,
or on the table, and I think that's and that's the value of emo. And then there's also just some fun, like
mhm,
when with like Motion City Soundtrack, when it's just like
yeah.
everything's all right, da da da
Mhm.
da.
But
And so
also his songs about mental health are
yeah,
spot on in a lot of ways too.
right. Well, yeah, and that's it's like we can sing about it all, and we can do it. And so I was saying that like some people stereotype um
Oh, it
sing
is all
about,
one same.
yeah, it's like, or that's like it's about wrist cutting and
Mhm,
black hair and girl pants, and
mhm,
like they sort of stereotype and they stereotype my chem is kind of the stereotype, which
mhm,
and I love my chem, but I was just talking with somebody about it yesterday. It's like the
mhm.
point my chem is because Gerard Way is really into comic books. And
Yeah, he actually has written and illustrated for them. Yeah,
yeah,
for
so it's like, so when Gerard Way is starting off, when he's doing my chem, it's like, well, there's
mhm.
an intentionality behind it because like he envisions himself as a superhero.
Yeah.
rock star. And so he's dressing up in a superhero costume.
Mhm.
Like, and that's totally fine, and that's
Mhm.
great. But that's Gerard Way. That's
Mhm.
um, you know, that's
Yeah.
not everybody. And I think it's like it. I've often argued that, and in fact, I was explaining this in the early 2000s to a parent that was concerned about their child who was emo. Um,
Mhm.
and oh, and someone had stereotyped it as like they wear like jeans with rips in them and Chuck Taylor shoes, and I was like,
I mean, they're not wrong, I guess.
and I wrote back. I said, so every teenager in the history of the fucking world, like since at
Yeah.
least the 80s, like
Mhm.
how many teenagers wear Chuck Taylor? Like
Mhm.
every teenager. Like, have you seen that 70s show? You know, but
One time, one
yeah,
time though, so for about a year and a half, I lived in North Dakota. I went up there for a job, and it was fine, but I came back to Missouri. Um, but when I was in North Dakota, for some reason, Fall Out Boy got booked at the North Dakota State Fair. So I went and saw them, and I think it was right around when Big Hero 6 came out, because they had that song in the album. And so there was lots of like families with children, and I was like, do they know exactly what they are bringing their kids? Like, there, and it
No,
was pretty funny to watch them see what Fall Out Boy was outside of just that one song that was on
yeah,
the
I
soundtrack.
can imagine that. But no, so what I would say is that you know, I think if anything, I think that music, I think emo core
Mm-hmm.
is an alternative to risk cutting and self-injury,
Mm-hmm.
or designed to be.
Yeah.
Uh, that it's like, hey, rather than injuring yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with this like shit on your own, like you could write about it,
Mm-hmm.
and put it into a song, and if you can add it to like a catchy melody and
Mm-hmm.
vocal, then the people listening can really appreciate it too.
I think, I mean, it all just seems to come, the heart of it, like, it all just seems to kind of come back to that, like, not feeling alone, not like feeling like you were heard, feeling like there's someone who gets it, um and someone who you can kind of look up to or emulate. So I think that seems to be the core of it.
Yeah, and so like I think that's, oh, but that's someone I talked to the other day was like, you should put that on a shirt, and I probably should. Um, but that's because I think emo is sort of something you kind of get or you don't.
Hmm.
In a lot of ways, like if you say the phrase emo kid, anyone who isn't emo kid is like, yeah, go.
Right. Hmm.
But there are many people when I've said that to others, like they're like, they don't know how to pronounce the word. It's like my music name now is Ben Bailey Emo Kid, because it's like literally
Hmm.
sort of a
Hmm.
novelty, and there's nothing wrong with being a novelty, but it's like
Hmm.
that's the point. It's like if you're interested, it's like music for
Hmm.
grown-up kids.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like if you're into
Hmm.
Weezer, World, and Yellow Card, you're
Hmm.
an acoustic guitar, you're probably going to really like what I make. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, and it's like if you're into country western music, then you might not be. And
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
okay. Like that's not, um, I'm not interested in like playing for the masses anymore or being a pop star. Um, it's like I'm interested in making music for this demographic,
Hmm.
and um, who can connect with it. And this, but I was at this college conference in Orlando a week before COVID hit,
Hmm.
college booking, and I had it, Ben Bailey Emo Kid.
Hmm.
Like, Ben Bailey, the Emo Kid. And I was like, just say fucking Ben Bailey Emo Kid. Like, it's not,
The emo. Yeah.
don't try to make it sound cool. Like, you don't have to say it.
Hmm.
Leave it alone. Just Ben Bailey Emo Kid. Move
So,
on. Well,
mhm. So I probably better wrap up soon, but
yeah,
I did have, here's a question for you.
yeah.
Is there a difference to you between, is there like a line between emo and pop punk?
For me, not really.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I someone said this the other day. I got to find the quote because someone actually asked that on the Pop Punk Kids group
Oh, that's
uh,
funny.
this week or last week, and I was like, it's interesting because I literally just created a website for grown up emo kids asking about this. So I'd love to talk to you about it. But someone just said that it was like pop punk kids are just emo kids who are happy. And something like that. And I laughed really loud. And I said to the
Mhm,
guy, put that down. I said, I'm going to steal this. And
mhm.
he, told me to go for it. So I was like, I'm going to take that. And that's going to be on a shirt very
Cause
soon.
see, my thing is, to me, emo, cause I'm even to me, emo is like American football, Jimmy Eat World, like brand new. Like there's something very like melodic about it. And then to me, pop punk is like Paramore, Blink 182. Like it replaces the melodic with more like catchy, upbeat. Like to me, there's like a distinction there, but I like them both. So I don't.
Yeah, I think there's a distinction, but I think they wind up they can tour together.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Mm-hmm.
but the thing is like, emo, there's no band that's specifically emo. I've shared that with
Yeah.
it's like there's no band that's specifically emo because it has a lot of outside influences. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
emo is sort of is kind of a subgenre of indie rock,
Mm-hmm.
also a subgenre of punk,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes hardcore punk, depending on where you get. So you have like
Mm-hmm.
Midwest,
Yeah.
because which is lots of suburbs. Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield is an enormous suburb. Like
Mm-hmm.
shit, that they have one skyscraper. Like I told you, it's like Springfield is like an enormous suburb. It
Mm-hmm.
like a
It is. Yeah.
Green
Mm-hmm.
County, it's like 100, it's like 200,000 person suburb.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, but they're like suburbs of Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
suburbs of Dallas, suburbs of of Florida, um, Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's like pockets where they're like, I mean, uh, the Wonder Years are from a suburb of an area called Bucks County, which is where I live in
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. Originally, and same with Anthony Green lives in Doylestown, which is literally 20 minutes from where I am. We've never
Mm-hmm.
met each other, but I kind of hope that we will,
Yeah.
because it would.
Speaking of spirit, I mean, he has some interesting spiritual like practices too and stuff.
But
Mm-hmm.
he's in that category that I would
Mm-hmm.
say is actually is emo, because
Mm-hmm.
I was driving I was giving an Uber ride a couple summer 19 and he was playing in Asbury Park and the Solar
Mm-hmm.
Green, and he was sold out. And but the kids, these people in my van were on the way to see him,
Mm-hmm.
and they were trying to figure out how to describe his music, the
Mm.
category, the genre it was in, and they were kind of like, it's like singer, a songwriter. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I chimed in with, I believe the word you're searching for is oh. And they're like, yes, that is what it is. But they were trying not to say it, and I was like, because
Own it.
it's not punk, right? It's not right. It's not even pop punk. It's like da 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 da. It's not my friends all over you. Like it's not
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not folk y,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's like not rocky,
Mm-hmm.
not rap
Yeah.
at all. It's not hip hop. Like
Mm-hmm.
where do you place it? It's like it's emo. Same with early November. There's a great
Mm-hmm.
example. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, they're not punk.
Yeah.
Nothing punky about it.
Mm-hmm.
But or like Jack's Mannequin or something
Mm-hmm.
corporate. It's like
Yeah.
they'll talk about like punk rock princess, but like their music isn't punk rock at
No.
all. And Jimmy Eat World, like it's sort of like, okay, you can, but like more power pop, right? Like
Yeah.
sort of like,
Mhm.
which
But
is why they've
yeah.
been able to continue longer. So I think there's a distinction, but there are some bands that can fall into both
Mhm.
categories, like um, you know, Yellow Card
Mhm. Oh
and
yeah.
Mayday Parade can fall in.
Mhm.
Um, maybe A Day to Remember can sort of
Mhm.
fall into that if you listen to them. But then there are
Mhm.
bands that are sort of more indie rock based, like Death Cab for Cutie or Copeland or Modest Mouse.
Mhm.
Um, or and then you have people like Weezer who are just kind of their own.
Yeah, they're more poppy. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's sort of the power pop
Mhm.
drive
Yeah.
versus pop punk drive.
Mhm.
So that's why it's like I kind of combine it. If you listen to my playlists, there are like a lot of combinations of artists.
Mhm.
It, you'll have Yellow Card and you'll have Blink 182. Uh,
Mhm.
you'll have Mayday Parade and A Day to Remember, but then you'll also will have like Rilo Kiley
Mhm.
and Bright Eyes and Mumford and Sons and the
Mhm.
Aver. Um,
Mhm.
fun fact, and then we can close on this note. Did you
Mhm.
know that the drummer for the Avett Brothers, who's been drumming for them since 2011, Mike Marsh,
Mhm.
for 10 years was the drummer for Dashboard Confessional.
I did not know that. That's very cool.
Yes, he was on
Mhm.
all their like the major label releases that came.
Yeah.
Um, that the Dusk and Summer album that they sold out Madison Square Garden with. He was on that. He was the drummer for that tour.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, he was their
That's
drummer
cool.
for yeah
Mhm.
for years. And then he drummed on the Avett Brothers. Um, I know it's the album that has I Am Loving You. Um,
Okay.
which
I'm
I
not
yeah
as familiar with David Brothers, but I mean I know them, but that's cool. I
yeah
didn't know that. Mhm.
and um that night, like
Mhm.
I learned about it because some friends of mine years ago at my last year at Missouri State made
Mhm.
an album with him. And I met him and was then talking about it with a friend, but he was like, he got offered, Paramore offered him a job
Hmm.
before, and then he was like, well, let me talk about it. Let me, talk with my wife about it and think about it
Mhm.
and see. And then later that night, he got a call from the Avett Brothers.
Hmm.
Like, I'm going to go with them. There are reasons behind that I don't know if they want me sharing
Yeah.
why,
Okay.
but so yeah, those things are like inherently linked, right? It's the same
Yeah.
from uh, you know, Dashboard, which
Mhm.
also toured with all of these other bands that we've talked about,
Yeah.
was also almost drummed for Paramore, the Avett Brothers, which are an indie rock band.
That's so
So
wild. Yeah, it's a small world in its own way.
it is.
Mhm.
So it all intertwines and comes together. Well,
Mhm.
Rachel, great talking to you.
Yeah.
Great seeing you,
Mhm.
and thank you so much for interviewing with me and hanging out. If you want to sign up for the email list,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
that
I'll
would
do
be
that.
sweet. And yeah, I
Mhm.
will talk to you later.
Yeah, it was good talking to you. Bye.
Likewise. Have a good night. Bye.